At about 10 o'clock p.m., the men say they were lifted from the wooden pier and held without force, unable to move as something came over the river. The sound they remember was not like an engine. It was a low, steady hum that vibrated through the boards beneath their feet. When they looked up, a rounded object hovered close enough to blot out the stars. It was October 11th, 1973. The place was a fishing pier on the Pascagoula River, Mississippi. Two men, Charles Hickson, 42, and Calvin Parker, 19, were ordinary in every recorded sense. A weeknight outing, fishing poles, a small talk of work and routine. What followed was not ordinary. Their accounts converge on certain unsettling details. A light so bright it cast shadows. A sound that made conversation impossible. Figures, 3, described as humanoid but unlike any person, moving with a jerking mechanical gait. The men report an instantaneous paralysis, an inability to call for help, then the experience of being aboard or drawn into the craft. They describe being examined, instruments or lights touching their bodies, sensations of cold and pressure, and a period of lost time. When they were left on the bank, both were shaking, disoriented, and carrying scratches and abrasions. They went directly to the sheriff. Law enforcement took statements that night. Local officers and later investigators recorded sketches, measurements, and interviews. The two men's sketches of the beings and of the craft contained similar elements. News crews arrived within days. The story moved from a local police file to national attention. One of the men spoke readily to the press. The other was visibly traumatized and reluctant. Medical notes show agitation and sleeplessness in the weeks that followed. The investigative record is detailed in certain respects and stubbornly incomplete in others. Tests were performed. Statements were repeated under different conditions. Some physical marks were documented. Audio and written interviews exist, yet no physical debris, no independent radar trace, and no third-party witness corroboration beyond the two men have been verified. Experts called to explain the event offered competing hypotheses. Environmental factors were suggested: swamp gases, lights from nearby facilities, optical illusions created by river humidity. Psychological explanations were proposed: a shared delusion, a stress reaction, or sleep-related hallucination. The men's testimony has also been weighed as a deliberate hoax by skeptics. Each line of explanation fits some details and dismisses others. Contradictions persist. The two narratives align on the shape and behavior of the figures, but differ in timing and certain sensory impressions. Medical and polygraph records are referenced in public reports but interpreted differently by different examiners. Physical evidence is minimal and, where present, ambiguous. The local atmosphere that night, river fog, distant lights, and the sound of ships, offers plausible misreadings and equally plausible anomalies. Decades of interviews, file reviews, and public debate have not closed the gap between what was reported and what can be demonstrated. The most specific detail that resists resolution is not the shape of the craft, nor even the instruments the men described, but the consistency of two unrelated observers who, by their own accounts, were rendered incapable of resistance and yet later produced highly similar descriptions. That agreement is a fact in the record that neither explanation fully accounts for. The official file ends with statements, sketches, and a pile of unanswered questions. The men return to ordinary lives with ordinary scars and an extraordinary story. The river continues to run at night. The lights still blur on humid evenings. The case remains in the files, unresolved, waiting for a detail that would force a definitive answer.